Well, welcome viewers to the channel. Dr. J.W. Ayoub, Theologist since 1994. Thanks for coming in. I've sort of gone slightly down the rabbit hole of the 2013 amendment laws brought in by Julia Gillard. Now, I want to just make a couple of things straight before I continue. I'm a theologist, a Christian psychologist, and on that premise, I would ask people if they want to PM me and I'll debate you on channel, edited. It'll be edited on this matter. Now, with constitutions, let me just start by saying, with constitutions, what happened was, micro-incrementally, the Western world developed. It developed itself into the civilization that it is today, bit by bit, through catastrophe lessons learnt, that the way to live successfully, and just let me say, this has only been going on for the last, at the most, since Christ, but they didn't get it right as immediately after Christ died. Basically, the Western world has been able to, over the centuries, work out what loving your neighbour actually is. So the Western world built its constitutions around these preservations, these humane preservations, because by nature, humanity destroys itself. So it needs restraint. And they figured out that the best form of divine restraint over governments and people was the message of the Messiah. Now, the Muslims, for those of you that are Muslim and those that don't understand Muslims, let me just sort this out. Christ came about, let's just say, 600 years before Muhammad. Muhammad travelled as a young boy. He was orphaned and travelled around the trade routes and everything and picked up bits and pieces of theology and then approached the people of the book with his theology, and the people of the book, the Jews, the Christians, rejected his message. And from that point on, Muhammad wasn't happy. And of course, then we get the evolution of Islam, and Islam has degenerated. It was always what attempted to be peaceful, but it was built on rejection. It was built on violence, and I don't want to undermine it. There are people that try and make it peaceful, but then of course you get the people that go right into the underneath of it and want to be acknowledged, and of course you get these terrible incidences. But the reason why I'm mentioning that is because the journey of the Western world to become as civilized as it is, it all comes out of the Middle East. It all comes out from the Middle East. And the Middle East paid a high price for where we are today. Now, what you've got to understand is with the Islamists, the underlying spiritual structure of why they morally collapse and become violent in a minority, but in a pretty severe way, is because the underpinning of Islam is rejection from the authenticity and authority of the people of the book, which is Christ, the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, this is the point. The Constitution, restraints in the constitutions that keep governments where they're supposed to be without busting out, are built on the principles and the morals and the disciplines that preserve human life right? Built on Christ. Now, what we're witnessing in Australia today at an accelerated rate, and listen carefully to me, please, because this is important. A lot of people are confused. They don't know the answers. I think I can contribute a little bit. All of this has to do with, and it doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. This is where the argument of we're being flooded by Muslims, we're being flooded by Indians, we're being flooded by Chinese and all these different religions. That's okay so long as, right, the state, the country maintains at the top its Christian constitutional, its Christian principle protections for the civilization. So it doesn't matter. I don't want to convert anybody, but what I'm saying is have the sense to know, whether you're a Christian or not, that this country is where it is, right, in its sanity because of the divine Christian restraint over the authorities of the country. Now, you'll see as they come out of that restraint, you see the laws that have been passed and the way in which the immorality, as it were, the political immorality, has degenerated really quickly. Now, I have to say this because the law is the law. It's not going to be changed. It's not going to be beaten by arguments in court. Okay? There's going to be influence and there's going to be publicity, right? But they will not let you beat that law in court. The law has to be beaten at the political level. Right? They have to change the law. The court can't do that. Right? The police can't do that. The politicians have to do that because the politicians are the ones that changed it. Now, what I'm trying to say is, please don't go to court and take on the courts because their limits are set by the law. You have to get into the politicians. You have to. Now, this is where the problem starts and this is where the problem can be fixed. As the Christian values over the nation, and again, it's not about, I don't care what religion you are, the nation is protected by the Christian fundamental values and morals of the land, whether you be Aboriginal or not, on First Nations. Right? There's a whole complexity about the colonists and all that, but it can be reconciled. It can be reconciled. It can't be justified, but it can be reconciled. Now, if you find yourself in a predicament with these people that want to be women, right? These men that want to be women, respectfully. Think very carefully about how you're going to take this on, because you will not get resolution in the court. You will not. The courts are bound by the law, the 2013 law. Right? So whether you think you're fundamentally and morally right, that's fine, right? You are. But the judges and the courts are bound, right? And the sex Anna Cody, right? And these people, they're playing this 2013 amendment to the Sex Discrimination Act of 1984 as far as they can. There is no moral premise that can beat it. Okay, you will not beat this thing in court. You'll get publicity and you'll spend a lot of money, right? And you'll get sympathy, but you will not beat it in the court. You have to beat it in the parliament. You've got to get and so let's get to the problem. As Christian fundamental values began to diminish, right? And there's a whole sovereign element to this. As they began to diminish and get blurred by people that were getting into parliament that didn't embrace those values, right? And it can happen really quick. As these people get into parliament that are Australian, they don't have to be Muslim or any other religion. If they don't have those fundamental rich Christian values, then the values that are instituted in the Constitution that protect these rights get undermined. They completely get undermined. Right, so then so then what we've got is people in Parliament, be it them full-bred Aussies, right? If they don't embrace what's got this country to where it is, then you'll see 2013 and beyond. And what happens is it's a micro-incremental inception. Nobody sees the damage at first. People would have been trying to stop it. But again, people would have went to court and everything trying to stop it. But it wasn't the courts that were going to be able to stop it. It's the politicians. It's the politicians. And there are politicians that are prepared to stand up to it. But from what we can see by the nature of the government at the moment, right, the object is to infiltrate and saturate the country with immigration. Why? To blur the Christian constitutional values further. If they blur the Christian constitutional values further, right, they get more precedence, more lack of restraint. They can unrestrain themselves even further. Why? To keep their jobs, right? Because as a government goes immoral, the moral people see it, right? The Christian value aligned people see it, and so they react. But if the government gets a whole swarm, right, and saturates populations with people that don't give a crack if it's Christian or not, as long as it benefits them, get in, right, then the government knows it doesn't need the people of the original citizens and people to vote for them because they'll have the numbers through the immigration. What's that do? That then gives the government less restraint, less Christian restraint. Because the government's under the restraint of divine sovereignty. And when it can come out from under that sovereignty, we can make men women. We can tell God, right? We can tell the person we're supposed to be under that his creation's not right. So forget about the courts. You're not going to beat this thing in the courts. It's political. But the problem inside Parliament House is morality, Christian morality. Now we've got a lot of politicians trying to make sense out of the nonsense, and we've seen some fantastic arguments, and Sal Grover and the other lady there, Kira Lee, they're going hammer and tong, but they're losing lots of money. Listen, you're losing lots of money to try and prove a point. Let me give you a message. You have proved your point and people are on side. But you can't beat the courts until the law's changed. And this is where Anna Cody, who's actually become quite serious, she is actually a little bit psychotic with this. if you listen and watch, the world's seen it. She's gone a little bit psychotic. And this is what happens when moral becomes immoral. Now, I'm not exaggerating. I am not exaggerating when I say civilizations have fallen exactly the same way. And unless there's enough people in Parliament with the fundamental original Australian constitutional values to turn this around, it's not going to turn around. Because it's only the Christian values and the people that can see those things as valuable that are going to be able to change it. Because why? Because who decided that man was man and woman was woman in the first place? The Christian God, the Jewish God. When the politicians come out from under divine restraint, that's the beginning of the end. That's why let me just tell you something. I'm 60 years old, right? When I was 18 years old, I was a slaughterman at Gosford Meats. Horrible job. Started off in the tripe room. You think you got trouble, people? Try emptying the shit out of cows' stomachs for 2 or 3 years and see how quick you become a man. I used to stand down in that tripe room and wonder, out of all the people, how did I end up here? Choices. Anyway, I can remember, I thought, if I'm doing this for the rest of my life, I'm buying a house. All the sensible people around here, and there was over 1,000 people that worked there, all the grown men here, all the men that seem to be getting somewhere, they're going home to their wife, and they own a house. I'm going to buy a house. So I went home and I said to my mother, I said, I'm going to buy a house. She goes, well, let's go and find one. I bought my first house at Point Clare, overlooking the water, at Brisbane Water, $34,000. I was making $600 a week. How on earth, right, are these young people today going to buy a house? Let's just be honest, unless you've got some kind of a special gift and you're in some kind of an extra high job, you ain't buying a house. So what's that tell us? The hope has been undermined. What can you say to a young kid today that's on $600, $700, $800 a week, that's coming home by the time they pay everything? The point of the fact of the matter is, and I hope people are listening, it doesn't matter what religion you are, really it doesn't matter. But if this country inside that Parliament House, if in there doesn't become restored back to its Christian fundamental values, it's not going to stop. And I'm going to make a real controversial statement right now. Donald Trump is a Christian man, and they crucified him for it. They've tried to assassinate him for it. And you'll be thinking, well, why is he bombing Iran? Well, do your homework and find out. There's a when he falls out of office, whatever happens, that's when the end's going to start. Because they're going to come back 7 times worse. The Lord told us this. They will come back 7 times worse. Now, what's that mean? It means that for us, we haven't got a Donald Trump. We haven't got a mainstay person that's saying, hang on a sec, we've got to follow the Christian fundamental values of this, whether you're Christian or not, just to protect the nation. Okay? It's just to protect the people. How do you protect the women? Right? You guys that think you want to be women, you're not created as women, but if you want to be that, do not intrude upon the authority and the authenticity of those that are. A woman has the authority and the authenticity and the authority of a created person as a woman to say no to these men. Right? What about the men that don't agree with all this? And you stand there and you're going, what on earth is this person? They shouldn't be going in where the women are. It's all got to do with not just erasing. See, if you erase Christianity and the Judaistic values of a nation, you've erased not just the biological authority and authenticity and exclusivity and privacies of women, you're erasing the whole civilization. It will implode. And you tell me, by what you're seeing in Australia now, right, everybody's trying to work out why this is happening. It's because the government has come out from under divine sovereign restraint, which is supposed to hold morality in its place. It's made itself God. It's now telling, well, look at 2013. We'll tell God that we know better than what he does, and we're going to run this better than what he knows, and this is a result. I'm warning you people now. If you want to take on the courts, go right ahead and take on the courts and prove your point. Go right ahead, but they're not going to go. They're not going to break. They're bound by the law. You have to find the politicians that can build enough influence to go against the unbelievers that want all this, right? They don't want to lose the votes of these degenerates, right? Degenerates. Any bloke that thinks he's a Sheila and walks into a Sheila's toilet or whatever is a degenerate, a deviant. You have to find the politicians that have these values, and then you have to pray to God that they have more influence in that parliament than what the majority of unbelievers have. Otherwise, this ain't going to change. You can jump up, you can scream and shout, you can waste your money against... Listen, the court system's the Coles and Woolworths for the government. As soon as you hit the court, you're just going through the checkout. You haven't got the power to change the law, and they're not going to give you mercy. The judges do have, it's called, what's it called? Discretion. They have discretionary rights. But what you've got to understand is, if the justice system's infiltrated by these corruptionists, then you're just going in up against a group of people that'll hear you out, take your money, put it in the till, and wait till you come back. So how do you win? How do we fix this? You've got to, please, anybody that cares about Sal Grover or Kira Lee Smith, the politicians, well, they don't listen to me. The politicians, we've got to call out the politicians for immorality. They're just certain groups of people to maintain their jobs. I'm Dr. JWA. I got a whole outline here. You're probably sick of, for those handful of people that watch my presentation, sick of it. But this is my final advice. Go to court at your own peril, and God bless you for what you've done. But you've made your point. You need to be on as much media as you can be. Stay out of the courts, right? Stay out of it. They're corrupted in the sense of morality. The laws aren't moral, creatively moral. Creative in the sense of how God made us. So there's immorality there, which means you're going to be met with corruption. Okay? They just got to go with what the laws are. They're going to put you through the checkout and wait for you to come back and just keep cashing in on you, right? I'm sorry, but that's how it is. It's just how it is. You've got to build momentum in the politicians. Okay? That's the only way this law is going to be changed. A majority vote from the politicians. Otherwise, you're going to just have to navigate this mess under the radar as best as you can. Because these deviants, okay, or the ones, okay, some of them are minority, 1 to 2% or whatever it is, less than that minority are genuine. For the other 99.9%, the deviants and the perverts and the ones that are just finding their identity as a means of making themselves feel better or whatever it is, they really don't need to be going into female spaces, but you've got to look at the other side of it. They've got difficulty going into the men's spaces in addressing that as well because men are opposed to it. Right? So they've got more hope going into a female place than what they'll have in a man's place because they know it's wrong in their conscience. My advice to you women, right? Don't say anything. Just scream. Scream and scream and scream and scream. And the rest will sort itself out. Scream. That's not saying anything. That's an inward alarm that something's wrong. They're playing you on your words. You won't beat the law. You will not beat the law. The politicians have to beat the law. Find who they are. Keep getting on. I'll tell you something too. They've got to shut down social media because the politicians have nowhere to hide, the immoral ones. There's nowhere for anybody to hide anymore. Okay? We're either going to be moral or immoral. If you're moral, you'll be recognized for it. If you're immoral, you're going to be found out. Look at the spending that's going on in there at the moment. They couldn't care less. They're spending the trust money, your trust money. Right? Like it's some kind of a joke. They're not going to tell you that. Where do you think they're getting the money from? They're not getting it from your taxes. They're getting it out of your trusts that you're not supposed to know anything about. There's a whole nother subject. I'm 100% for what you're doing to try and stop this, but for God's sake, stay out of the courts until they change the law. Because the courts are bound by the law, and that's why serial, pathological, psychotic, whatever you want to call that woman, Anna Cody, within the law, she's actually sane, okay? Within that law, she is sane, and she knows it. And quite frankly, if you're getting nearly $500,000 or whatever it is, $450,000 a year, you're going to play the game. Right, all she's got to do is play the game. She didn't have to go into that rant the other day about how the probability of a man being pregnant can cause a court case over the fact that he may not be employed. She didn't have to say that. She slipped. That was a slip. And that showed, right, that these people will play the game under this law. What they're trying to do now is find all different ways in which they can chameleonize this law to suit the deviants. She slipped. She didn't mean, in her pride and ego and determination to show all the people on that side that she's for them and have a bit of a show off, she actually slipped. She didn't have to say any of that. And what she did was she gave us the opportunity to realize the strategies that are going on behind the scenes. These are the strategies. These are the ways in which they're weaving this madness in ways in which you wouldn't even imagine. It's up to the politicians. Okay, Sal and Kira Lee, they're in deep, right? And if you can help them out, help them out. We're all got things going on at the moment. Help them out 100%. But please do not enter the courts. Get on social media, get on the news, do whatever you can that way. And get onto the politics. We're at the mercy of the politicians. The politicians of court and viewers. One of the issues for the politicians is they know there'll be a redress. There'll be a redress for this. There'll be compensation and a redress if they change that law. All this is going on behind the scenes. And whoever's in government's going to have to say, we're just going to have to wear it. Let's give back these women their rightful position in life. I'm Dr. J.W. Ayoub, Theologist. I hope this helps. Share it around. Just for those of you that don't know, my channel's been shadow banned since its inception, so both of them. So if you do get this, God bless, and bye for now.